Unbalanced data providers. One of the more powerful features of web intelligence is the ability to combine data from more than one source into one document. Well, this is done by creating multiple data providers, linking them up, and using the combined results in a report flow. Merging data providers in web intelligence. When two or more data providers are built in web intelligence from the same universe, they are automatically linked together using any common dimension objects. What happens when two different data sources are used? Well, in that case, the report writer has to merge the information manually, and if the dimensions from each data provider are not identical, the report has, that's what I call unbalanced data providers. To show the example, I'm using Aligned Research Marketing as my universe. I'm going to create a query in such a way like it is going to result in an unbalanced data provider. For the first query, I'm using resort, year, and one measure dimension, sales revenue. I'm adding one more query which is from the same universe, Aligned Research Marketing, and in this query I'm using region, year, and one dimension, number of guests. Let me run the query. Let me drop this in the header. This is my report. The first query, and this is my second query. Yes. So this is from my first query, resort, year, and revenue, and from a second query, region, year, and number of guests. I have one common dimension, which is year. I also have two dimensions that are unique, one from each data provider. Since both data providers came from the same universe, the common or shared dimension, that is year, has already been linked. You can see it here, or you can see from here, merged dimensions. Year has already been merged. So these are the two unique dimensions from each data provider. Since the year block is already merged, I can create a report block that contains year, revenue, and number of guests. Let me create it. Year, revenue, and number of guests. So what you can see here is, since the year is the common dimension here in both the queries, so the result looks pretty fine. I don't see any difference. The revenue is good and number of guests. So if I want, I can do some basic calculations to here. Let me add the column to the right, the header, revenue, guest. The formula will be equal to revenue divided by since the year is common dimension in both the queries, so far I got the results in the correct way. So this is revenue, this is number of guests, and revenue per guest. So far everything works fine, but what if something doesn't work? So now what we are going to do here is mixing dimensions generates unexpected results. So let me add the result dimension here. Okay, now you can see one thing here. You can see in the number of guests dimension in the object, when the year repeats, the number of guests is also repeating specifically. So now let me do one thing. Let me exchange the dimension from result to region, which is from other query. No. You can see now number of guests looks fine, but my sales revenue is repeating according to the year. Let me make you more confusing. If I do let's apply the break on year, and if I do sum here, see, you can see the sum on the footer is identical to the values displayed in the block. Well, the measures is not summing here, do not sum here, they are projecting. The secret is that Web Intelligence do not sum a column of values like it does in Excel does. To be in a nutshell, I can say, when a measure is combined with a set of dimension values in a block, the measure will project, that is a roll-up, based on the structure of the block. Now this is also called as the context of the measure within the block. Since the way I created the query here, the revenue context is determined by combination of resort and year objects, which is a combination of year and resort objects, whereas the number of guests context is determined by the combination of year and region objects. Since the year is the only dimension which is common in both the queries, that's why the queries show me the valid data if I'm using just the year dimension. So now let me conclude my session. So unbalanced dimensions means in my data providers, if I have year as a common dimension and resort hanging off on one side and region hanging off on the other side, Web Intelligence will prevent me from adding both resort and region to the block at the same time, but it will allow me to add one of them, assuming I do that, add an extra dimension, which I have two dimensions from one data provider and one from the other.